The third round of stimulus checks is here. This is thanks to the American Rescue Plan, the third major COVID relief package since the coronavirus pandemic began. It includes stimulus, but also unemployment benefits, vaccination support, healthcare subsidies, support for small businesses, and state and local aid. But much anticipated was that next round of stimulus money, and it's $1,400 per qualifying individual. The administration expects that the IRS will begin issuing funds within days of the law's enactment, and President Joe Biden is expected to sign this legislation into law on March 12th, which means checks can be going out in the mail before the end of March. Let's talk about who's eligible. Generally, the stimulus check is $1,400 per person making less than $75,000 a year. It also includes $1,400 for each dependent claimed on taxes. And dependent looks a little different this time around. It does include qualifying children, as it did in the past, but it also includes older children and adult dependents. And that can mean college students, adults with disabilities, and elderly Americans claimed as dependents on your taxes. Let's talk more about those dollar amount thresholds. Your check size is going to depend on the adjusted gross income you reported on your most recent tax return that you filed. So maybe you filed for 2020 already, but maybe you haven't yet and you've only filed for 2019. Either way, either 2019, the most recent filing, or 2020, that's the adjusted gross income they're going to look at to determine your check size. And you are eligible for the full $1,400 if your adjusted gross income is under $75,000. It phases out, it gets less. That dollar amount on your check is going to be less up to your adjusted gross income of $80,000. If you make over that, you are not going to see a stimulus check. Now, if you file your taxes as head of household, that threshold of adjusted gross income is a little higher. It's $112,500, and that phases out at $120,000. Now, if you're filing jointly, your adjusted gross income can be up to $150,000. That's going to give you and your spouse each $1,400, so the full amount would be $2,800, and that phases out at $160,000 of adjusted gross income. Here's who's not eligible. The IRS tells us that non-resident aliens are not eligible. Their statement is as follows: a taxpayer is eligible for a credit with respect to any individual in the household for whom a social security number is associated on the tax return. So they are looking for social security numbers. Now, let's say somebody meets the income criteria but does not have a social security number. They won't receive a payment. If their dependent, however, does have a social security number, a stimulus check would come to support that dependent. Also not eligible: someone who was claimed as a dependent on somebody else's taxes. Also not eligible: anybody who passed away or died before January 1st, 2021. Now, payments are automatically issued based on the information from 2020 tax returns, or if unavailable, 2019 tax returns. Let's say you're someone who doesn't file a tax return, though, non-filers. Then the IRS, in the legislation, is given broad authority to make payments based on information available to the Treasury. The Treasury is directed to conduct outreach to find those non-filers and make sure they can get their payments. Now, let's talk very briefly about arrears and garnishments. These third stimulus checks will not be reduced to pay child support arrears, federal taxes, state income taxes, debts owed to federal agencies, and unemployment compensation debts. However, there is no protection against garnishment by private collectors or other debt collectors or other creditors. Also, nothing is going to stop creditors from getting your third stimulus check in a bankruptcy proceeding. These automatic payments, they're going to come by direct deposit, right to a person's bank account. They could come in a mail check, or they could come in a prepaid debit card. Now, two reminders. First of all, these payments are not taxable. They're credits. They're recovery rebate credits. So they are not taxable income, and they don't count as income when you're determining eligibility for public benefits like food assistance programs or some health insurance. In the description below, you can read that full American Rescue Plan and other statements that give us a little bit more detail on this next round of stimulus checks.